Hello, and welcome to your Publix Safety Orientation. My name is Brandon Weeks, and I'm an Industrial Safety Specialist here at Publix. Today, we are going to be spending time together as we dig into how to work safely and also go over some safety precautions and procedures you are going to want to know before entering the industrial settings. There are hundreds of jobs here at Publix, as most of you know. Each one of them is very, very important, but the most important job out of all of them is going to be working safely. Today, hopefully with our time together, we will know exactly how to do that. So join me as we go along. First things first is to truly understand why we're here. Many people depend on us, including ourselves. We depend on our customers, we depend on our managers, we depend on our families at home, and also they depend on us. They depend on us to work safely each and every day to be able to come home back to them the same way we went into work. So we need to remember that throughout the time together today as we talk about these safety procedures and guidelines and principles to make sure we know exactly why we're doing them for the right reasons. So first things first, I want you to take a deep thought into who depends on you at home, whether it's your family, a friend, a close loved one, or even just yourself. All of them are very, very important, and everybody depends on you in some way, some shape, or form. So I know it's early in this video in our time together, but I think it's time for a pop quiz. Take a second and think, who is responsible for your safety? The answer to that, as you probably thought, is yourself. As much as we'd want to say, hey, I would love to think my best friend will be responsible for my safety, really and truly the most important person responsible for your safety is for yourself. And it is important to make that commitment starting today. As you look here in this picture, it looks like we have Rapunzel as she's getting ready for a night on the town. She looks pretty safe right now, wouldn't you say? What happens if we put the same Rapunzel we all know and love into a manufacturing setting where there's tons of automated equipment, chains and sprockets, where hair could be caught up in those areas? It is very important to remember in these industrial settings that we want to keep our hair pulled up if you have long hair to make sure that never happens. Also, same things in this picture here. Well, as we look at this guy in jewelry, we would say he's probably spending a lot of money on that jewelry. One thing we want to make sure is that he never damages it, but not only that, we want to make sure his jewelry never gets caught up into equipment that he could be working around. We never want fingers to be pulled in because of rings or chains as well to be broken or pull someone into a conveyor because of wearing that. So what we ask is to please leave that at home and don't bring that into our Publix industrial settings. A next huge and important thing to know about is fire prevention. Fire prevention is huge at Publix as there are many different ways fires could possibly happen if we don't do the right things to prevent them. So first off, what is a fire hazard? A fire hazard is a condition that could cause a fire or explosion. So definitely something we don't want to happen in our Publix industrial settings. So let's go into a couple common causes of those fire hazards or fires. First one is cigarettes. Cigarettes is a huge common cause of fires here at Publix. We want to make sure we do a couple things to make sure that never happens. First would be smoking in the correct areas. At each facility, there are areas that are designated for smoking only. We want to make sure if we are a smoker, we smoke in those areas and we dispose of our cigarettes properly. The next common cause of fires here at Publix are debris next to electrical panels or propane tanks. One thing we can do to control that is to make sure we never place anything or around or near to an electrical panel, on a wall, or on a machine. That is very, very important. Another one to avoid these common cause fires is to always make sure that we are trained and we are authorized to perform hot work. We'll get into hot work permits a little bit later, but I want to relate to authorized work as something that we are trained through Publix in order to do. So if you ever see something damaged in the warehouse, the best thing to do is report it to your manager. Don't bring your welder in from home and try and fix it yourself. Now, I would like to go ahead and let you know a little bit about the rest of the class and how it's going to work. There's going to be a set of videos coming through that kind of looks like Mythbusters, but it's actually the Safety Busters version from Publix. The first one is going to be on combustible dust, which is also related to fire hazards here at Publix because of the dust that we have in our bakeries and areas like print shop. It's important for you to know about it in case you ever see an area that has a lot of combustible dust and see if we don't take care of it properly, what could actually happen.
It is about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I am here at Sigma Services with Russ Clark and his crew, who are special effects artists and experts. Russ, you are the man.
Welcome out to the Flame Factory.
You know, you're an honorary safety tester.
This is very cool.
It is very cool. Russ, I've got a bunch of different kinds of dust that are part of the manufacturing process at Publix. I want to find out if those types of dust are combustible enough to cause an explosion at Publix.
Not all things are all that combustible, but in the right conditions, many dust products can ignite.
Right. Okay. Well, what do you say?
Let's blow some stuff up.
Yes. All right. What do we have here? What's this set up?
We've got a device here that will send a cloud of aerated powder up in the air past this flare, which will act as a source of ignition. And if it's flammable, we should get some sort of flame above it here.
Well, let's get started.
We'll start with the sugar powder.
Absolutely.
Dust.
Yes.
Get it down in the machine.
That's good sugar. It's good. When it goes up, do we get a candy bar when it comes down?
I'm not sure.
Reminds me of home ec class. I blew that up too.
Run away. Fire in the hole. 3, 2, 1. Fire.
So that sugar looked pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was all right. I think we're going to get a little more reaction out of this print shop dust.
Okay, now this is the stuff that comes right out of our print shop. So let's see what it does.
Absolutely. Let's get it loaded up and then we'll shoot.
It doesn't smell as good as the sugar.
May not taste as good either. See how it's aerosoling like that?
Yeah. Well, the sun is starting to come up here, and I love the smell of print shop dust in the morning.
Ready to go? I
Absolutely.
think we're going to get a little bit more
let's
reaction.
light
out of
this candle.
All right. Fire in the hole. 3, 2, 1. Sawdust.
Cause a big campfire, right?
Yeah, that's going up in suspension. I think this may go. Let's load it and find out. Fire in the hole. 3, 2, 1.
So, sawdust, no go.
Didn't go very well. If you want to see something that'll really go, I've got some stuff that you put in here, and it'll show you ideal conditions. We'll get a really nice flame out of it.
That's what I wanted to hear. Yes, yes.
In the entertainment business, we use a powder to produce some flame effects. And it has a very interesting characteristics in that in a pile, it has very little reaction. It doesn't even burn very well. We have to get it in suspension, in a stream of air. So we'll do that. You can see that that's a much more energetic reaction.
Yeah.
To add another element is we'll add the element of containment. This could be a confined space or a building. In this case, it's a coffee can. We've got a candle in here and a funnel, and we'll put this lid on. We have everything we had before, but now we've added confinement. Shields up.
Wow.
Just by adding the confinement, we get quite a bit more reaction out of it.
Wow. That's amazing, and definitely shows the hazard of a confined space.
Absolutely. And if you like, we can go outside and shoot a very big one of these.
Yes, I absolutely would love that, yes.
Okay, let's go. Fire in the hole. 3, 2, 1.
That was awesome.
There you go.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right, well, I guess all this proves that dust is combustible. So remember to keep your work areas clean and free of dust. And remember to, when you're entering a confined space, make sure you're using static-free equipment and flashlights.
If your visibility is limited by dust, it's a dangerous environment.
Right, get out and ventilate. Thanks, Russ.
Thank you.
All right.
So what did you guys think about that video? Combustible dust. Pretty serious stuff, right? Now don't go home and take all your sugar out of your pantries because of it being something that can be combustibles. But we want to make sure in all the environments we're working in, if you see something that's very cloudy or you're in a room that is tough to breathe in or tough to see through, please let someone know immediately. It is important to take precautions before things get bad. Next, we're going to talk a little bit more on fire prevention. A couple things to keep in mind while during your stay here at Publix. First things first, always make sure we keep 3 foot from any type of electrical panel. That means storing things, parking rides or equipment in those areas. We always want to make sure there's nothing around for the event of arc flash or events where we need to turn something off very quickly. Please make sure we don't exceed or go inside that 3-foot panel clearance. Also, we want to make sure we follow hot work rules at all times, even including at cookouts. Here at Publix, we love to celebrate the good things, especially the things we do well. With that being said, there are times you will probably see when we have a cookout for a celebration. It is important that we make sure that we dispose of those coals properly and we follow all cookout permit guidelines to ensure no fires will be started from our celebrations. Another big thing is following storage guidelines. Everything that we take out usually has a place to be put back in. Please make sure that we always put those things back in the correct places. Disposing of trash properly is also a huge one. We want to make sure plastic goes in plastic, cardboard goes in cardboard, and items when we might have to use rags and clean up oil or some type of spill, we dispose of those in the correct locations, and we will talk about that in a little bit later. We also want to keep all of our work areas clean. That is a huge one, and something that's very, very little, but can make huge things for us in our facilities. And we also want to follow all proper maintenance instructions, whether we're in production or whether we're in maintenance. We always want to make sure we follow those guidelines. Next, let's talk about some of the prohibited personal items you should not bring into Publix. First off, space heaters, incense, lava lamps, crock pots, electric blankets, candles, plug-in air fresheners, and coffee makers can all be left at home. Please do not bring those in to work. Luckily, some of these items will actually already be provided to you in our break rooms, such as coffee makers, microwaves, and things like that. Next, I would like to talk to you guys about emergency preparedness. Hopefully, we will never experience some type of emergency together, but I do want to let you guys know that we are prepared if we were to have one. With that being said, the first thing I would like to talk to you guys about is down in the bottom right-hand corner of the picture. What you're going to see is fire risers. Fire risers are supplied and placed throughout the warehouses and the industrial settings. These fire risers provide tons of water to the sprinklers that you'll see inside of your facility. One key point we want to make sure we never do is turn these fire risers off or park in front of them. They are ready to support that water if needed and if there was a fire to happen inside of your facility, and we want to make sure we never do anything to stop that from being able to work properly. Another key point to know is also we have fire hydrants located on the property. We want to know exactly where those are located in case we could ever help fire personnel in response to a fire. It would be helpful if we knew exactly where those were so we could help them in times of emergency. Also, we want to make sure we never park in front of those as well. In the middle, you're going to see a eye wash shower station. That is going to be extremely important if you ever get chemical on your skin and body or in your eyes. We'll talk a little bit more later on how to exactly use this, but I just want you to know those are in place. Next, we also have emergency procedures and maps located across the facilities at emergency exit doors and throughout the warehouse to let you know exactly how to get out of a warehouse and the procedures to take in case of an emergency. In relation to the emergency procedures, on this sheet, you're going to see exactly how to dial 911. You may ask, Brandon, why would I need to know how to dial 911? It's kind of self-explanatory, right? Well, here at Publix, you actually have to dial a 9 and then 911 in order to call an outside line. That is going to be extremely important in order to get a hold of someone during the emergency. Next on this emergency procedure list, you're going to see the address of the location you're going to be working at. That is very, very important so you can tell emergency personnel exactly where you're located. And next, you're also going to see on that procedure list is going to be the security post and gate number associated to that facility, your industrial setting, or even an office, which is going to be important for getting those personnel to you as soon as possible. Included in this, you'll see a map under those procedures, the evacuation map. This map will allow you to know multiple ways to get out of the area from the exact location you are in the facility. This is extremely important for those of you who are just now starting this week and have never been in these environments before. So please make sure to look at them and get a good idea on how you could get out of the building in multiple ways. Last but not least, we have fire extinguishers throughout our facilities. These fire extinguishers are checked on a routine basis by our fire prevention team and are ready to be used. They are going to be provided for you in case of a small fire outbreak, or if you ever needed to use one, you'll be able to see those usually by a sign that will be pointed down to them, whether it's on a rack, on a wall, or somewhere in your industrial setting. The very last piece I want to tell you about as well is a pull alarm fire station. These pull alarm fire stations are there for our use, and once they're pulled, it immediately calls the fire department and dispatches a fire truck out to the location. So it is very, very important that if we use those, we know that it is in a very emergency setting, because we never want to call paramedics or fire trucks out if they're not needing. But if they're needed, we do have the choice to pull that fire alarm, and you do and you can use that if you needed to. All right, so let's play a little game here, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but let's just say we're all out on a boat, we're in the ocean, cruising around, and someone smells smoke. When you smell smoke, you run downstairs and you go and you look at this image on your screen and you try and find a fire extinguisher. Can you find it? As you probably looked, you saw a fire extinguisher in the back underneath the stairs. You probably could get to it fairly quick, but it still would take you a couple seconds, which would be extremely crucial in the midst of a fire on a boat in the middle of the ocean. What if I told you that there was a fire extinguisher a lot closer and way out of the way, but someone had placed boxes and a vacuum cleaner in front of it and took up time from you to be able to find it? What if those seconds could have saved someone's life or your own? Hopefully this scene is able to clearly show you why it is so important that we never block our fire extinguishers in our departments, because each second truly does matter in the case of an emergency. Two more things I want to talk about in emergency preparedness is how we dispose of rags with oil or grease or anything flammable on them, which would be in these red cans located on the left of your screen, and also how we store all of the chemicals and the sprays that we use in order to clean, to lubricate our machines in these yellow fire cabinets. It's okay to have those cleaners and lubricants outside, whether we're in manufacturing or production cleaning things, or if we're in maintenance cleaning things, or lubricating different machines. But we want to make sure once we're done using those that we place them back in those yellow fire cabinets. The purpose of those cabinets is to contain all those chemicals and flammable objects inside those cabinets in case we were to have a fire, so it truly doesn't add more fuel to the fire. This next video is going to be on fire extinguishers. It's going to teach you a couple different methods that are going to be very important for you to know in case you ever had to use a personal fire extinguisher, whether at work or even at home. So please join me and watch this video along.
Don't try anything we do in your location. You've been warned.
We're trained and work with a team of professionals monitoring the situation at all times.
In this episode of Safety Testers, Gene and Scott hunt for the best method to put out small fires at Publix. But when the fire rages, will they be able to put out the flames? The Safety Testers are Gene Richards and Scott Toombs.
Well, somebody's already beat me to the car radio.
Together, they have a mission to explore safety in our stores. They won't rest until our associates know how to stay safe and what to do when the unexpected strikes.
Okay, today we're here to find out if we can fight a small fire in one of our stores, distribution centers, manufacturing plants, or offices.
Right, you know, a fire is always a possibility no matter where you are around Publix. Nobody tries to start a fire, but accidents happen.
Right.
So what do you think we need in order to find an answer?
Well, we need to start with what we know. There's 5 types of fires, and they're all identifiable by classes. The first class, Class A, combustibles, paper, trash, wood.
Right, well, flammable liquids would be like gas or paint, and that's Class B fires. And Class C fires, which are electrical, like appliances or motors.
Right, the other 2, Class D, combustible metals, and Class K, which are cooking greases and cooking oils.
Right, now, I know when I think about fighting a fire by myself, I think of a couple of things. First things first, want to pull the fire alarm, make sure everybody nearby is safe.
That's right, and it also notifies the fire department to let them know that there's a problem.
Right, and then you can think about using a fire extinguisher to fight the fire. Now, there are different kinds of extinguishers to fight the different kinds of fires. So what we need to find out is what kind Publix has and where they're at.
Sounds good. You know what? We're gonna need to split up. You go check out one of the stores. I'll call Shannon and see if I can get into one of the manufacturing plants.
All right, that sounds like a plan. Great.
All right, let's go.
So Gene and Scott are off to find which types of fire extinguishers Publix uses. They'll need to make sure they're thorough if they expect to fully answer the question.
Do you know where I could find a fire extinguisher? If I were a fire extinguisher, where would I be? ABC Dry Chemical. ABC Dry Chemical. ABC Dry Chemical. Is that all we have in our stores? The person to ask would be the assistant store manager. They deal with all the fire extinguishers.
While Scott is off to find the assistant manager, Gene has met up with Shannon Wilson to talk about the manufacturing plant.
Lines here. Since we handle open product in our manufacturing facilities, we don't use the dry chemical powder extinguishers.
I could imagine the cleanup effort it would take if the fire extinguisher powder covered these machines and contaminated the food products.
Yeah, it'd make a big mess, and we would waste a lot of product. So here, the only thing you're going to find is this, CO2 extinguishers.
That's it? Nothing else?
Nope, nothing else.
Thank you so much for doing this for me today.
You're welcome.
So with Gene already wrapping up his assignment, Scott is just finding out where there's a different type of fire extinguisher in our stores.
So I'm here with Bert, our assistant store manager, and he's going to show me an alternative to an ABC Dry Chemical fire extinguisher. What do you have, Bert?
Over here we have the Class K fire extinguisher. It's located near the fryers, and it can be used after you pull the fire suppression under the hood.
Okay, so ABC Dry Chemical fire extinguishers everywhere except for around fryers.
Correct.
Got it.
Mission accomplished. Both Gene and Scott are on their way back to the office to discuss what they found.
Okay, so in our stores, I found ABC Dry Chemical fire extinguishers, just like this sample here. Okay. And anywhere we found fryers, I found Class K wet chemical fire extinguishers.
Cool. In the manufacturing areas, they use CO2 fire extinguishers. And while I was waiting for you to come back, I made a couple calls. The distribution offices and the corporate offices both have ABC fire extinguishers as well.
Well, great. So now we know what kind of fire extinguishers are available around Publix.
And given what I've seen, the best way to fight a small fire at Publix is with a fire extinguisher. The key question is, how effective is it?
Well, it's obvious to me that we can't just test one fire extinguisher. We're going to need to test all 3.
The reason Scott is concerned about testing all the types of fire extinguishers they found is because of the way fire extinguishers work. In order to have a fire, you need oxygen, heat, and fuel, which cause a chemical reaction. Each extinguisher acts a little differently, so he wants to make sure we know how each one works in order to fully answer the question.
We're going to need a lot of fire extinguishers and a safe test site, and I know just the spot.
Well, great. I'll call our fire extinguisher supplier and order a bunch of extinguishers for testing.
Cool.
Great.
Day 2. Gene and Scott have arranged to use Lakeland's firefighter training facility to test the extinguishers.
This is great. This is perfect. We couldn't ask for a better site to test fire extinguishers in.
You're right.
All right, come on, let's get to it.
Since the area is built to handle fire, it'll provide the perfect, controlled environment. Also, there are safety personnel on hand in case things get out of control.
Okay, so while Gene is setting up the testing site with our fire department, there's a couple of things you need to do before you even consider using a fire extinguisher. First, activate the fire alarm. This will not only tell people to get out of the building safely, it will also notify the fire department that there is a fire. Next, assist anybody in danger. People's lives are the most important factor, so get everyone out of harm's way immediately. Then you can grab that fire extinguisher. Now we'll know more on how effective a fire extinguisher is in just a moment. How are we looking, guys?
We're looking good here.
All right, tell me what we got.
Well, we got a special mixture of diesel and gas in the stainless steel pan, specially made for testing fire extinguishers.
All right, so we can just grab a fire extinguisher and go.
Not yet. You need to be familiar with the pass method.
What our firefighter is referring to is the method for using a fire extinguisher. When standing 8 to 10 feet away, you pull the pin, aim the hose at the base of the fire, squeeze the trigger, then sweep the hose back and forth.
Fire in the hole!
So, with the fire burning and Scott armed with an ABC fire extinguisher, our team is ready to do its first test. An ABC extinguisher works by interrupting the chemical reaction in a fire. Remember, the testing done here is under strict supervision. You should never attempt this at your working location.
Okay, so I pull the pin, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Whoa! Whoa! Hey, I think it's working. Is it working?
Yeah, it looks good.
Oh man, I can't believe how short that thing lasted. There really isn't that much inside.
But it did work.
Right. Hey, you ready to test the CO2?
Let's do it.
All right.
So they light the fire and go again, this time with CO2. CO2 extinguishers work by removing the oxygen from a fire.
Same result. Stop the fire.
Yeah, you know, it's really looking like it's possible to fight a fire in one of our locations.
All right. Let's do the final test.
All right.
For the final test, Gene and Scott use a Class K extinguisher found in our kitchens. The Class K extinguisher removes heat from a fire. Class K extinguishers are designed to be used only on a grease fire and never an electrical fire.
Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. There it goes. All right, looks like we got another success.
Certainly. All 3 extinguishers were very effective.
That's great.
So, with testing finished, our crew is headed back to the office to wrap things up.
So Gene, these fire extinguishers were totally effective in stopping these fires.
Correct. But even after pulling the fire alarm and assisting others, you shouldn't always try and fight the fire. For example, in our deli kitchens, you should try and activate the overhead fire suppression system in the grease hoods before you use your Class K fire extinguisher. That's the way the Publix system's set up to work.
Additionally, it's great to know that Publix has the right fire extinguisher in the right area.
That's why it's important to know where the location of your fire extinguishers are in your work area and your department before the fire happens.
Right. Now, you know, I was really shocked to find out how short these fire extinguishers lasted. A fire extinguisher would only help you fight a small controlled fire.
Yeah, you don't want to fight a fire that has thick black chemical smoke coming at you, and you definitely want to have an escape means like a door behind you.
Right. Most important of all, never attempt to fight a fire unless you feel safe doing so.
Still, if you follow the above guidelines, it answers the original question. You can definitely fight a small fire at Publix.
I agree. It is possible. Using a fire extinguisher would allow you to fight a fire as long as you feel safe doing so.
Hopefully that was a good video that showed you exactly how you could use a fire extinguisher in case of a small fire. Please remember that you will receive more training throughout your years here at Publix each year on this. So if you ever have questions on how to use one, please make sure you get with your manager or safety specialist, and we will make sure you know. In relations to both of those, we've already talked about never parking in front of them and if you're allowed to pull the fire alarm system. Both of those answers are yes, you can use the fire extinguishers and you can pull the fire alarm system if you ever need to evacuate the building and also call personnel to come and fight a fire for us. Next, going into emergency evacuations. I've got a couple pictures on the screen that will show you exactly what those emergency evacuation maps are going to look like. In this picture here, you'll see a black X located in the break room. The pathway is going to show you the quickest way out of the building. Now here is a second way. And let's just say we were working during a hurricane setting or working during a tropical storm setting and a tree happened to be blown down and was now blocking one of the exits that we were so used to using. There you'll be able to find on this sheet, evacuation map, another way out of the building that may lead into a parking lot or another exit outside of the building. So it is always important to know multiple ways out of a building in case of emergency. So the next emergency evacuation I want to tell you about is if we were ever to have an ammonia release. During ammonia release, you're definitely going to smell it. Ammonia is extremely strong. And if you've ever cleaned with ammonia at home, you'll realize just how strong that smell is. Now, the stuff you might have used at home to clean is only a concentration of 3%. The ammonia we use here at Publix and our refrigeration units to cool our warehouses is 100% concentrate. It is extremely strong and self-evacuating once you smell it. So let's talk about what would happen if you were to smell ammonia. The first thing you'd want to do is you would want to notify your manager right away. Not only would you want to let your manager know that you've smelled ammonia, you also want to let them know exactly where you smelt it at. They're going to get in touch with our refrigeration team and send one person up on top of the roof and one person to the warehouse where you last smelt it at. They're going to go and look and try and figure out exactly where that leak is coming from, and they are going to take complete control over the whole building, which means your evacuation plan. You are going to want to stay very, very close to an intercom or listen somewhere to exactly where you're going to need to go. You could be referred to going outside in the parking lot or your normal evacuation procedures and routes, or you might be told to shelter in place, whether that's in an office, a break room, or a certain part of the warehouse on the inside or outside. It's totally up to refrigeration at this time, as they are going to be in complete control. One thing we want to make note on is if you smelled ammonia, you would never, ever, ever want to pull the fire alarm. The reason for that, if you pull the fire alarm system, you would have to remember that everybody is probably going to run out in the building in certain ways that they choose. They're not going to know exactly where that ammonia release, and the worst thing that we could ever do is allow those associates to run into areas where that ammonia is now going to hover at and stay for a period of time until it is well ventilated and goes away. A couple other things to remember in all of these evacuation maps or evacuation moments is once we get outside, we want to make sure we get with our manager. We want to talk to our manager, let them know that we are there and we're accounted for. That way, when emergency personnel arrives, they can give a truthful answer and make sure no one has to go into the building looking for us if we are already out. That could be one of the worst things we could possibly ever do. Next up, let's talk about active shooters. You've probably heard multiple stories or read different things, seen it on news of times in this world where active shooters have been a reality. One of those things we want to talk about today is if that ever happened at Publix and how you could respond to that situation.
The video you are about to watch is disturbing in nature and is intended to provide guidance on what to do in the event of an active shooter incident to help increase your chances of survival.
There is breaking news from San Bernardino, California. A mass shooting.
The worst shooting in Colorado history and one of the worst mass attacks this nation has seen in recent memory. There are 12 dead, 58 injured. Most have been shot.
Latest reports are there could be more than one individual with multiple weapons in the building.
At least 50 people are dead. At least 50.
An active shooter is an individual engaged in killing or attempting to kill people randomly in a confined and populated area. Active shooters come prepared. They may carry multiple weapons and excessive amounts of ammunition. In most cases, their plan is to claim as many victims as possible. At Publix, we care about you. We want you to be prepared if the unthinkable ever occurs. Your survival depends on your actions. Always pay attention to your surroundings. Always know where the exits are.
Okay, thanks guys.
Pay attention to the actions of fellow associates.
Hey Alex.
Active shooters have no regard for human life. Not yours, not their own. So what do you do? The options are few and simple. They are: run if you can, hide if you must, fight to survive. Run. Run to the nearest safest exit. Always run in the direction away from the shooter, away from the sound of gunfire, leaving everything behind. If you find yourself in a weak hiding spot, be prepared to move again when you're safely able to do so. If possible, run safely out of the line of fire and out of the shooter's view. Encourage others to follow, but evacuate regardless of others' actions. Active shooters have no regard for human life, not yours, not their own. They do not respond to pleading or negotiation. If you hear gunfire, don't hesitate, don't investigate, run. It's your best option. Use cover and concealment as you evacuate. Concealment is to use things around you to block the shooter's view of you while you escape. To take cover means to hide behind items thick enough to stop or deflect bullets until you have a chance to run. Remember, your most desired option is to run. Once out of the building safely, call 911. Warn others not to enter the danger zone. Give aid and comfort to the injured who have also escaped. Do not attempt to move the injured, and do not re-enter the building to provide aid. If running is not an option, and hiding is, then hide if you must. Lock and barricade the door if possible. Turn off the lights. Silence your cell phones completely, and stay very quiet. If possible, stay behind solid objects that can provide cover. And stay put until law enforcement tells you it's safe to evacuate. When law enforcement arrives, they cannot attempt to render aid to the injured or to evacuate the area. They will have one mission only, and that is to locate and eliminate the threat as quickly as possible. You are not out of danger when law enforcement arrives. Everyone is a suspect, including you. Do not make any sudden moves.
Contact the other room. Police, from your side, say something!
Put down any items in your hands.
Come outside, your hands up!
Remain calm and do exactly as you are told.
Your hands up, run outside!
Raise your hands and spread your fingers. If asked, give law enforcement the best, most accurate information you can give. Only after the shooter is apprehended or dead and the area is secured will first responders be able to render aid. And finally, if there is no way to run, nowhere to hide, and you are in unavoidable danger, then you must fight to survive. You have the right to defend and protect yourself. Improvise weapons. Be aggressive. Attack vulnerable areas. Commit to your actions and do not stop until the shooter is subdued and no longer a threat. As you've just learned, active shooter incidents can occur with little or no warning. Your survival depends on your actions. Always be aware of your surroundings and the behavior of those around you. Share your concerns with management. Always know where the exits are. Listen and take notice of sounds in your area. And finally, if you find yourself in an active shooter situation, remember today's training. Run if you can. Hide if you must. Fight to survive.
Next, let's talk about spill response. We have tons of chemicals, different types of liquids, different types of products that we ship out each and every day that could create spills. If we drop a case or a lid breaks or something happens, and we now have liquid on the floor. There are many things that we need to take into consideration when cleaning that up, or in general just walking around the warehouse and making sure it is picked up so no one slips and falls on it. With that being said, if you asked you in this image here, would you clean this up? What would you say? I'm sure probably most of you watching right now said either I would probably just clean it up, and there's some that would say, there's no way I'd clean that up. How would I know exactly what it is? And if you said that, that is a very, very good answer. If you saw some type of liquid on the floor in your industrial setting, you want to make sure you know what it is first before you just go cleaning it up. There might be some type of personal protective equipment you need to wear before encountering that spill and cleaning it up, because you could put yourself in a hazardous situation. So with that being said, there are several different types of spills. There could be food-related spills, non-food-related spills, and other spills that are just related to different chemicals or different things that are in our environment we're working with. So let's take a couple things into account in relation to those spill response situations. The first one would be we never want to leave that spill unattended. The reason for that, we don't want to have someone else drive a piece of equipment into that spill where they lose control because of the slippery floors, or have someone walk through it and slip and fall, and then they're an associate from something that we left unattended. If we see a spill, we want to take into something Mr. George always told us, never pass it up, but pick it up, to make sure that no one ever slips and falls in that or gets hurt. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure we know exactly what we're cleaning. If we know what it was, if we saw someone drop a can of soda, or if we saw a selector drop a case of tomato sauce, we would know exactly what it is, and yes, we could go ahead and clean it up. But let's just say it was somewhere in our manufacturing facility where a jug of sulfuric acid fell on the floor. We would want to make sure that no one just goes and cleans that up if they didn't know exactly what that was, because with sulfuric acid, there would be certain type of personal protective equipment that we would need to use in order to clean that spill up. So it's very, very important for us to know exactly what we're cleaning before we do that. The next types of spills that could be out there, and I'm not trying to gross anyone out, but they could be related to first aid. This could be any type of blood-related spills, or also vomit or bodily fluids such as that. With that being said, your managers are trained with first aid response. One of those things in that training is how to clean up these spills relating to the bodily fluids of blood and vomit. Now, you do not have a responsibility to cleaning that spill up, but your responsibility is, if you see it, you should let your managers know immediately so we can clean it up. Also during first aid response, this situation could be very, very, very hectic. And I tell you that to put you in a situation to think of things that you want to be prepared for if you ever encountered someone laying on the floor who was not responsive. So I've got a 3-step response that I want you guys to remember during your time in an industrial setting. If you were to walk up on someone and you saw them laying on the ground and not responsive, the first thing you want to do is either dial 911 or get with the manager immediately. You also want to make sure on your way up to that associate that you're not putting yourself in danger by going up to them, whether that is something falling from a rack or some type of electrical line that is nearby. You always want to make sure exactly what you're walking into as you're going to respond to this incident. So after you've gotten with your manager or you've called 911, you want to stay with the person. Please remember, as you stay with the person, you want to try and stay positive. You want to make sure that if that associate is still listening, you're being positive and you're not giving false hope to that person. And then the third thing you want to do is you want to make sure to remember your role. If you've been trained in certain things to try your best at, please try your best at those things. But one of the things you don't want to do is ever do something you don't know how to do. You never would want to move the associate or try and turn that person in a different direction, because you could cause more harm by doing that. Some of the other things to keep in mind during this situation is it's truly going to take a team to respond to an emergency like this. Things to keep in mind are things of how are you going to get paramedics to that area. Think about different badge scan doors that you will have to have people go and open up so paramedics can get through. Think about blocking off aisles, and also remember that sometime being around an injury or an event like this, could cause more harm than being there if there are already people assisting in this situation. So try to find your place the best you can, but try not to block the area for first aid responders trying to help this response happen. Next, I would like to talk to you guys about signs, tags, and labels that you're going to see throughout all of Publix's locations. Each one of them is very, very important and means something different, but they are all great indicators to expect of what's to come. The first one I'd like to share with you guys is the yellow sign or tag. Yellow usually means caution, especially here at Publix. This could be at an intersection, or it could be a sign just to let you know to be cautious of this area or maybe of a piece of equipment that you could be working around. Another type of a label that we use is an equipment out of service tag. Now, this tag is extremely important for you guys because after this class, you will actually be allowed to use this, which is pretty cool. So take pride in that. This tag is something that allows you and gives you the authorization to take any type of equipment or any piece of equipment out of service if it is unsafe or has some type of hazard that could truly hurt someone. So let me give you a couple examples. Let's say you go to get on your forklift for the day and you notice hydraulic fluid laying on the ground, or maybe the forklift tire is laying off on the side and it's not connected to your forklift. You probably shouldn't drive that forklift, right? Right. What you could do is actually use this equipment out of service tag and place it on that forklift or any type of other piece of machinery or automated equipment and take that out of service. Once you fill it out with your name, date, the reason why you took it out of service, and the time and the equipment number, once you place it on there, you can no longer take that off. The only person who can take that tag back off is someone from maintenance after they've gone through and they've fixed the issue or they've deemed that piece of equipment safe again. So that is very, very, very important to remember. There used to be extremely, extremely high levels of discipline relating to this, where if you pulled this tag off, you were automatically fired. Now it's almost just as bad, except you're placed on a level 4 if you were to pull this tag off. So please make sure you never ever do that because you could be putting yourself or someone else in serious, serious hazards. The next label that is going to be extremely important for you to know about is going to be the data plate, which you'll find on all powered industrial trucks. This data plate is going to tell you several specifics relating to that powered industrial trucks. The most important one you're going to want to know about is exactly how much you can carry on that forklift or pallet jack, which you can find on this data plate. That is going to be called your load capacity. Other signs, which you're going to see colored orange, are going to be warning signs. These you're going to want to pay close attention to because they truly are there to keep you from getting hurt. Red are going to stand for danger, which you'll usually see on electrical cabinets or electrical panels that let you know that there's voltage, or other areas that it might tell you of how a machine operates, of pinch points or things like that. So make sure you remember red is danger and to stay away from those areas, especially if you're not an authorized associate to do work in those areas. Here's another good example of a yellow caution sign. Now this sign is a little different, especially for those of you who are going into those manufacturing settings. The reason I say that, some signs could be indicators of what the future could look like. So let's talk about this. Let's say during the day shift, it's only a production setting. So people are running, making product, and the floors aren't very wet. But at nighttime, let's say that whole environment is completely different. They could be cleaning, spraying different sanitizers and foam to clean these areas up. This sign would be a great indicator that it could potentially be slippery when wet. So keep in mind that all signs might be an indicator of something that you're not seeing yet, so pay close attention to them. Another one would be blue, which is going to be telling you some type of information, which is key. During your walkthrough this next week, please take time to read these signs so you can get an early notice of exactly what's going on in these areas and what do you need to be aware of. Green is usually related to all of our emergency eye wash stations as far as showers and the eye washes, and also our first aid kits. This is going to also be important to see during your next week walkthrough, so you know exactly where these are located, because it's going to be awfully hard to find if you were to get chemical in your eye to find one of these stations if you don't know where they are already. So please make sure you use these signs to help identify exactly where those emergency shower stations and first aid kits are located. Here's another one, and this is relating to biohazard infectious waste. Now you might say, why would Publix ever have anything like that? Well, I can give you a couple examples of where you might see this label and you would want to definitely stay away from. In our associate health clinic, we do have areas where we dispose of needles. We want to make sure we never mess with those needles or anything like that. Also, there may be times whenever we have to clean up those bodily fluids such as blood or vomit and dispose of it in one of these biohazard infectious waste bags. So please make sure if you ever see one, you're not opening it up or going inside of that for any reason. And now let's talk about lockout tagout. Lockout tagout is probably one of the biggest things that we use here at Publix to keep ourselves safe. It is extremely important and allows us to interact with equipment each and every day, whether that's cleaning it, taking it apart, or even fixing it. The biggest thing for everyone to know are there's two types of associates here at Publix. The first one is affected associates. Affected associates are associates who are not trained in things like lockout tagout currently, but could eventually be trained. But at that point, they're just affected associates and they do not have a permission to use lockout tagout, but they will be working in environments where lockout tagout is being used. The other type of associates are associates who are going to be considered authorized associates. These associates have gone through a class, whether it was lockout tagout, confined space, or anything like that, and have been trained on how to use these different procedures correctly and for Publix to keep themselves safe and the ones around them. So with that being said, the biggest thing for you to know right now is lockout tagout is only to be used for those who have been trained. For those of you who are going to be working in manufacturing settings or in distribution where your maintenance team may have something locked out, the thing I want you to know the most is you do not have authorization to use those, and you can never remove something you see on a piece of equipment that has it locked out. Now just a reminder, lockout tagout tags are only to be used with a lock. And also on these locks, a couple of things to know about is the name of the associate who is using that lock and is responsible for that piece of equipment being locked out will be shown on this tag, and it only belongs to that associate who has been trained and is an authorized associate. This is different from the out of service equipment tag. That tag is only used by any associate here at Publix who can place it on something and they cannot take that off. Only maintenance can take it off. This tag, the lockout tagout tag, is only able to be taken off by the person who puts it on. So that means if you're working in an environment and you see this tag onto something, you are not allowed to take that off. In relations to other permits and things you need to be aware of that make an authorized associate different than an affected associate are things like confined space. In confined space, examples of that would be like at the dairy plant where we have milk silo tanks, or at the bakery where we have flour silo tanks, or even trash compactors. Those areas we have deemed confined space, and they require a permit before we can enter into them. Certain things have to be done to make sure that we ensure safety for all associates entering into those areas that are not designed to live within or be in for long periods of times. So we have to take those precautions serious, and we do that through making sure we've checked all the boxes off on the permit. So biggest thing for you to know at this point is if you see this, please do not go into these areas. You would have to be trained in order to go in there, and you would have to have a permit filled out. So biggest things, these are just going to warn you of those dangerous areas. Other things, such as high voltage stickers, will be located on areas that have high voltage areas, lots of electric, which you'll see a lot of these in the manufacturing settings as well as in distribution. Biggest takeaway for you is to know these identification labels will let you know exactly what is behind those panels and doors and will keep you safe. So please pay attention to them, and the best thing you can do for now is just stay away from them. Here's a couple examples of lockout tagout being done correctly. As you look on the slides, the bottom three corners show you exactly what a lock and tag would look like once it's placed on a piece of machinery and it's powered off. If you see these in your facilities, just leave them alone and know someone is working on that machinery, and it might be the reason why a line or a machine is not currently working. Please don't try to take them off, cut them off, and never, ever, ever try to turn them on, because that could be extremely, extremely bad. Also, if you look at the very top left-hand corner, that lock does not have a label on it or a tag on it. The one thing you want to do in that situation is let your manager know. That way your manager can talk to the associate who has that lock on the piece of machinery, or whether it's a valve handle or a disconnect, and get the proper label or tag placed back on it. All right, in relations to HAZCOM, let's talk about what HAZCOM is first. HAZCOM stands for Hazard Communication, and it is a way we are able to communicate amongst all of our associates exactly what is inside all of the chemical containers that we are using. It is very, very important that we know that as well, because just as cleaning up a spill that we don't know what it is, if we don't know what is inside that container that we're using to clean things up, that could be very bad for us. So as you look at this picture, think about this even at your home. What do you think each one of these chemicals are? I could look at the picture and say maybe that's Windex in the blue spray bottle, maybe that's Pine Sol in the orange one, maybe that's toilet bowl cleaner in the blue bottle on the left. Those are all assumptions, and I truly don't know, but I could take a pretty good guess and say that might be just that. I also want to tell you a story of why it's so important that we know exactly what's inside of those. There was once a story of a kid at a football field who was playing football, came in from practice. It was an extremely hot day. He went and he got inside of his dad's truck on the way home and reached over and grabbed a Gatorade bottle because he was extremely thirsty. As he grabbed that Gatorade bottle and drank it, several minutes later, the kid passed away. The reason the kid passed away was because that was not Gatorade inside of the Gatorade bottle. It actually was radiator coolant that the dad was using to store inside of that Gatorade bottle for times whenever his radiator coolant got low. This is extremely real story and something very real to the environments we work in and also things we do at home to make sure that never ever happens. It is important to know exactly what is inside each bottle because the person is going to go off of that when they see it. And if we don't have anything on it, we need to make sure we have those labels. So let's talk about those different labels. The first label you're going to see is a primary label. This is a label that usually comes from the vendor or the manufacturer of that chemical. On it, you will see 6 key points that will tell you exactly what you need to know before using that chemical. The first one is the name. It's going to tell you exactly what is inside that container. The second one is going to tell you exactly how hazardous that chemical is. It will usually either tell you danger for extremely severe or warning for a lesser severe type of chemical. The third one is going to give you a little bit of a description about the chemical. The fourth one is going to go into great detail about that chemical. It's going to tell you exactly what you should use as far as PPE, what you should keep it away from, whether that be heat, sparks, or certain different environments. It also will even tell you what to do if you were to get it on your skin, or if it came into contact with your eyes, or if you ingested it. So those are very, very important things to have. The fifth arrow you're going to see points to the exact manufacturer of who made that chemical. That is important for us because if we ever needed to know more about that chemical, or maybe find out what type of PPE we should be using or any types of questions, we could look on that label under number 5 and be able to contact that company if we needed to. The sixth one, if you like coloring books like I did in school, this is your go-to. This is your pictograms, which will show you some of those key points of the chemical, and you'll be able to look at those and say exactly what you need to watch out for and be careful for in relation to that chemical. So let's talk more about those pictograms. The first one shows you that this is a health hazard pictogram. This tells you that it could be possibly relating to causing cancer, or it might mess with your reproductive system or your respiratory system. All of these are going to be related into the health side of that getting into your body or causing you health-related problems with that chemical. So there's going to be different things you're going to need to take into consideration when using it. The next one is going to be something that is flammable. So earlier I talked about the yellow cabinet, the flammable cabinet, where we store things that are flammable. This pictogram would be great to show that chemical is either flammable and should be stored there, or if I need to keep it away from flames or anything like that. This is definitely something that emits flammable gas. It's self-heating, it's flammable, it self-reacts, and it's something I want to definitely keep away from any type of heat or sparks in a situation. The next one is exclamation mark. So this is something that is an irritant. So if you think of an irritant, think of something that irritates you. This chemical, when you're using it, you'd want to be very cautious to keep it away from your eyes or any type of area on your body that is wet and has moisture, because if you were to get this on your skin, it's going to cause some irritation and definitely cause some discomfort. So we want to make sure we have all the proper PPE on when using this. This pictogram here shows gas cylinders. So this would be on things like propane tanks, CO2 canisters, spray paint bottles, anything like that where there is actually something under pressure in relations to a gas cylinder. So if you see that, know exactly what that is. The next is going to be a corrosive or a corrosion. This is something that causes irreversible damage to your skin and or bones or parts of your bodies. So if you see this, know it is extremely important that you do not get this on your skin, because it could potentially eat through your skin into your bones, or it could even eat through metal. It is that severe. It can cause serious eye damage, skin damage, and it can even be devastating to different types of metals. So keep that in mind. The next is exploding bombs. So this is something that could blow up or create some type of explosion. You could see this on propane tanks, spray paint bottles, anything that is compressed and could explode. This one is a flame over circle. You'll see this on oxidizers. So as you saw in the video earlier with fire extinguishers, you know that oxygen is an extremely important tool in making a fire. This chemical will actually give up its own oxygen and will keep on adding to that fire. So this would be extremely devastating in relations to being around a fire or adding more fuel to it. Here we go with the skull and crossbones. So this is some type of chemical that could be extremely fatal. We would never want to drink this. We would never want to pour it on somebody. We would definitely want to take very, very high precautions when dealing with this chemical. The next one is in relations to environmental. This would be something we would not want to use, whether it's going into a drain or somewhere outside, because it could definitely cause devastating things to our environment, our ecosystem, and even animal life. So we want to keep that in mind as well. So here, the safety tester is going to go into a little bit more detail on exactly hazard communication in our stores and our facilities, just to give you guys a couple examples and to make this very, very real to why it's so important to use hazard communication properly.
Don't try anything we do in your location. You've been warned.
We're trained and work with a team of professionals monitoring the situation at all times.
In this episode of Safety Testers, Gene and Scott test hazardous substances at Publix. They're going to guarantee that when the going gets dangerous, you've got the protection to keep you safe. The safety testers are Gene Richards and Scott Toombs. Together, they have a mission to explore safety in our stores. They won't rest until our associates know how to stay safe and what to do when the unexpected strikes.
Today, we're talking about hazardous substances at Publix. That means any substances that you'll handle that could cause a physical or health hazard.
The important thing to remember about dealing with this subject is that you have the right to know what chemicals you work with. Now, there are two terms you need to be familiar with: MSDS and PPE.
MSDS stands for Material Safety Data Sheet. There's an MSDS for every chemical that you might work with at Publix.
An MSDS shows procedures for dealing with a substance in a safe manner. It will also require physical data such as boiling and flash point, required PPE, toxicity, health effects, storage and disposal, and first aid procedures. So if you have any question about how to deal with a substance at Publix, then the MSDS is the place to go.
PPE stands for Personal Protective Equipment. Things like gloves, aprons, and goggles are considered PPE.
So MSDS, PPE, we now know what they are. The question is, how are they more specifically used at Publix? This is going to take a little research.
That's correct. I happen to agree with you this time. So, we'll split up. You handle PPE, and I'll figure out where the MSDSs are at Publix.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Another subject, another research assignment. Gene reaches out to a store manager to figure out how to get an MSDS.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good. How's it going?
Good. I'm trying to find where associates can get access to an MSDS on chemicals used at Publix.
Yeah, we have that centrally located on the Publix connection. I can show you where that's at.
Great.
Meanwhile, Scott's found someone in the safety department to go over the PPE used at Publix.
So what exactly do we have here?
Well, this is some of the PPE used here at Publix with respect to hazardous chemicals. We've got some gloves,
goggles, apron, and it's important to put those on correctly to protect you.
Okay, so an MSDS would tell you exactly what to wear if you were handling a substance.
Yes, that's right, and additionally, we've got some charts in our retail departments.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to put these gloves on, and how about this apron? We'll go
this side out.
Okay, and finally, these goggles. Anything I should know about these?
Well, they're designed to keep out hazardous substances, protect your eyes from splashes and things coming to the sides.
All right. Well, I feel protected. The question is, do I look good?
You are every safety department associate's dream.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Now let's see how Gene is making progress on the MSDS.
Okay, you go to Publix Connection and click on Get MSDS.
Okay, and then it looks like you search for product name and then type in the product name, hit enter, and you're good to go.
Yep, it's that easy. And if you have a question, you can ask a manager or supervisor. You just want to make sure you know what you're working with before you start using the product.
Wow, that's great advice. Thanks so much for your help.
Oh, my pleasure.
One subject down, one to go. Scott is still learning about PPE and chemicals at Publix.
So why would an associate need to wear any of this PPE?
Well, some of the hazardous substances that we use at Publix require the use of PPE. Anything that's a hazardous substance presents a physical or a health hazard. So we're talking about irritants, corrosives, combustibles, flammables, carcinogens, reactives, and so on.
Carcinogens, now those cause cancer. Do we have any of that stuff at Publix?
We don't have any among our authorized chemicals used in retail. However, we do have some of that in our support areas, which really highlights the importance of wearing PPE and handling it with extreme care.
Well, that seems like good advice. Steve, thanks again.
Thank you.
Sometimes the answers just lead to more questions. Luckily, the team is already hard at work finding the answers.
Have you found what you're looking for?
Almost. What have you found?
I found out that an irritant is a substance which causes reversible damage to living tissue, and a corrosive is a substance which causes irreversible damage to living tissue.
Ouch. I wouldn't want to come in contact with that without PPE.
Right?
Look, a flammable liquid is anything that has a flash point below 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, a combustible liquid has a flash point above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but still below 200.
Well, then what's a flash point?
Well, it's a point where a liquid releases enough vapor to ignite.
I also found out that a reactive is a substance which, if handled improperly, can cause toxic fumes and fires and explosions.
Dangerous.
All right, I'm gonna get this over to the guys. I'm sure I'll be back with a new assignment.
Great.
So, I learned that the MSDSs for hazardous substances are available on the Publix Connection.
Great. Well, I learned that some of the PPE used at Publix are gloves, aprons, and goggles.
Maybe we need to test to see how effective Publix PPE is.
Agreed.
Hello, fellas.
Hey, Heather.
Hi, Scott, here's the research that you wanted. Now, do we know what we're testing?
Not yet, but stick around. Actually, yeah, Gene, we're gonna need to light something on fire.
Why do you always think with a match in your hand?
It's not always, but look, there are corrosives, combustibles, irritants, reactives, and flammables all at Publix. That's a lot of stuff that could lead to a fire. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to demand a test with fire.
Okay, but we also need to test to see just how corrosive these corrosives are.
Okay. Well, Heather, I tell you what, why don't you and Chris take that one? Gene and I will handle testing the PPE, and I'm going to come up with a way to light something on fire.
So the team has their assignments. But before we rejoin the team, let's talk about material labeling. The fastest way to tell if a substance you're working with is hazardous is by checking the pre-printed label. The label contains all the basics you'll need to know about a substance and any PPE required to use it. Checking the label is a great place to start when looking for information on a material. But the MSDS is much more detailed. Remember to never use or place a substance in an unlabeled container. Now let's get back to Gene and Scott to see if they figured out a way to test PPE.
Since PPE is the only barrier between you and a potentially hazardous substance, it's really important that a given PPE can hold up for a decent amount of time.
Well, it sounds like someone has a plan.
Yep. Let's test to see how gloves and goggles hold up in a hazardous substance over the course of an hour.
Well, then we should probably use ProStrip. According to our safety department, it's one of the most corrosive substances we use at Publix.
Well, then let's submerge the goggles and the gloves in ProStrip, and we'll leave it there for an hour.
Okay. And then we can check them for signs of physical damage, as well as even fill the gloves with water to check them for tiny holes.
Let's get prepped.
Okay.
Since Scott and Jean have the ball rolling, let's find out how Heather and Chris are doing on their assignment.
I have our assignment. Are you ready for this? Okay. We get to find out how corrosive ProStrip really is.
Okay. That shouldn't be hard. Let's place a couple of objects in the substance and we'll see what happens.
Well, we can't use human skin, so what do?
I suggest we use fruit. An orange has skin a lot like ours. It has a lot of pores and it keeps water out.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, a lot of tattoo artists, when they're first starting out, they use oranges and grapefruits to practice on.
Huh.
Didn't know that, did you?
No. Ooh, can we put a penny in there too? Because I want to see if this stuff is strong enough to hurt metal.
Yes, we can. What do you think?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll weigh the products ahead of time. We'll leave it in the ProStrip overnight, and then we'll take the weight at the end.
And we'll know how corrosive it is based on how much of the original weight is left.
Bang.
Shabam.
With both teams on the move, Scott and Jean are getting ready to do their first test.
Ready for this?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a way to use fire in an experiment.
Seriously, dude. We need to get this started.
Hey, look, I'm all set. I've got my PPE on
Yes,
because
you
I'm
do.
working with a potentially hazardous substance. And now we've got the PPE for us to test.
Yes, we do.
Now, what I did is I went ahead and put a whole bunch of this ProStrip into this barrel here. Now that the ProStrip is in the barrel, we can take the PPE and submerge it into the ProStrip in the barrel.
Yep. And I just wanted to point out that we put water in these gloves to make sure there were no holes.
All right, first up, the gloves, please.
There you go.
Thank you.
Make sure you completely submerge them too.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, and now the goggles. Here we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We'll check back in an hour.
All right.
An hour has passed, and the guys are eager to find out how the PPE fared.
Okay, let's see, get these washed off and see how they fared.
So, make any headway on your fire experiment?
Actually, I did. My plan is to ignite some of the flammable substances around Publix. I want to see how hot they burn. Well, that looks pretty good.
It does look pretty good. Why don't you put some water in the glove to see if there's any holes the eyes can't see?
All right. All right, get that nice and filled. You have a towel to dry that off?
Oh, there you go.
Let's see here.
That looks
pretty good. It looks like it's holding water.
It sure is. I mean, that's certainly going to protect you if you're working with a chemical, if you're wearing the required PPE.
Yeah, and the best part is now we get to light stuff on fire.
Oh, jeez.
The team has their work cut out for them. Let's join Heather and Chris and find out their results.
Okay, so we've donned the appropriate PPE.
Yes, and we look adorable.
And now it's time for the tail of the tape between the orange
Oh,
versus the penny. Let's
looks
get
like
this
it did
rinsed.
some damage, right?
Agreed. Let's get this rinsed off and weighed.
Okay. The orange has lost 12% of its original mass. Ooh.
Pretty substantial.
Yeah. Yikes. All right, the penny.
Rinsed off. There you
Oh, look how shiny it is.
go. Brand spanking new.
Oh, cleared all that dirt right off. The penny has lost, looks like 2% of its original mass.
Not as much as the orange, obviously,
Not
but
as much,
I mean,
but
still
it did
for a
some
penny.
damage.
Yeah.
Whew, okay.
So the corrosive had its effect on both of them. So.
Yeah, and we realize how important it is, really, really important to wear this PPE because that substance can do serious damage to your skin.
Absolutely. Let's get these results over to Gene Scott.
Okay.
And it's the flame test next.
Oh, it's the flame test next. Yes!
Gene, I'm very excited. The moment has finally arrived. Light stuff on fire.
Seriously, dude, you need another focus.
All right, but this is serious business.
Yeah, it is. It is, because today we're going to test two substances. Hand sanitizing gel, instant sanitizing wipes.
Right.
Hey guys, here to help. What do we do?
Okay, you guys can be in charge of getting the burn temperature.
Cool.
That's an infrared thermometer.
Nice, no problem.
And Chris, why don't you be in charge of fire safety? Once we've got the reading, go ahead and put the fire out with a fire extinguisher. All right? I'd like to start with the hand wipes.
Okay.
All right. Grab those and get that bad boy open.
This is going to send off a blaze. No germs here.
Achoo. Oh, me too.
It's like a nice salad, huh?
Yeah.
All right, wipes are set.
All right, everyone in position. Okay, we got a hot set. Scott, you're clear.
Lighting.
It just peaked at 9:12. Ooh, 9:35. It's peaking at 9:56.
Okay, Chris, go ahead and put the fire out. All right, let's get ready for the next test. Let's do the hand sanitizing gel. Okay, let's get ready for the next test.
All right. Heather, go ahead and let it burn for a little bit so we can get the hottest possible reading.
All right.
All right, remember, it's a hot set. Okay, Scott, pull the trigger.
Lighting. All right, you can see it's cooking pretty good. It's just burning clear.
Yep. All right, what's the burn temperature?
I got it reading at 4:15. Burn temperature 4:45. Burn temperature is 5:12.
All right, what you're seeing here is an alcohol burn that doesn't produce a flame, but generates quite a bit of heat.
What's the burn temperature?
It's getting hotter. It's 5:17.
This is a weird burn. Chris, go ahead and put this out. All right, coming in. All right, let's get cleaned up and go talk about the results. So, Scott, what was the significance of the burn testing?
Well, we found that one of the most flammable objects at Publix is cardboard, especially in our back room. The ignition temperature for cardboard is around 383 degrees Fahrenheit.
That means the two substances that we tested today could possibly cause a serious fire. Heather, what were the results of the corrosives?
Oh, Chris and I determined that the corrosive substance can deteriorate a penny by 2% and an orange peel by 12%.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So, the key to hazardous substances at Publix is, first off, safety. Make sure you know what you're working with by checking the label and the MSDS.
Right. You want to wear the PPE required. The PPE has been proven to help keep you safe when working with a hazardous substance.
And we've learned that no matter how harmless something may seem, if it's marked flammable, it has the potential to start a major fire. Something as simple as hand sanitizer could cause a major problem.
But now what we haven't talked about is what to do if something bad does happen.
That's right. For instance, if there's a skin exposure or an inhalation exposure, first aid will be your first step in that situation. Contact your manager for assistance.
But if the hazardous substance has been ingested, then you need to call poison control immediately at 1-800-222-1222. Then you need to get the MSDS on that substance to assist the operator.
That's right. When you're looking at the MSDS, you'll notice something called target organ effects. This will tell you what organ a substance affects.
Right. Something called neurotoxins would attack the nervous system, whereas something called hepatotoxin may attack the liver.
That's right. Now, this type of information will help with poison control and with EMS when they arrive.
The most important thing to remember is to be safe when working with any potential hazardous substance. It always has the potential to hurt you or someone else.
Use the knowledge you've learned from this training to help you stay safe at Publix. And remember, you have the right to know.
So I hope you guys got a lot out of those videos, and I'm sure it's probably definitely made you very aware of why PPE is so important to use when working with these chemicals. I now want to take you into exactly what they were talking about when they talked about an SDS sheet or a safety data sheet and why it is so important for you to know about. On this picture here, this is just one page of a safety data sheet that's going to tell you a couple things. There's usually 16 different subject headlines to this that will tell you things from first aid measures, different personal protective equipment, how you can clean up a spill with it, all found in this SDS sheet. Now I want to tell you guys exactly how to find one and how to access one if you ever needed it. So in order to do that, all you need to do is go to a local Publix computer that has Publix connection on it. You wouldn't have to log in, but you would, however, have to click on the top resource tab. Once you click on that resource tab, it's going to take you to another page. On that page, you're going to see a side to the right that says Get SDS. Click on the Get SDS, and it will then take you to Publix's database for all of their chemical relating items that do have a safety data sheet that is going to be there for you to use if you ever needed it. What I suggest you do is once you get into your facilities and you get into your role, any type of chemical that you know you're going to be working with, go ahead and read those SDS sheets now. It will tell you exactly what you need to use, how you can use it, and also different types of things you might take into consideration if you ever had a spill or if you got it on your body, which is important for you to know now and not when it happens because it could save you time. Once you get to this database, you can search whatever chemical it is. So let's just say it was Clorox bleach. You could search it just like you would in a Google search bar. You could search it here in this database and it will take you to a list of that chemical with the SDS sheet. You could print it out, you could send it in an email. There's multiple different things you could do, but the most important thing you can do is you definitely can access an SDS sheet to know more about the chemical you're using. Now let's just say you didn't have time to get to a computer, or you are around a computer or a power outage where you cannot access that SDS sheet. We do have other options. One of those options is through your facility, you will see several different yellow posters posted up that talk about SDS. It will say it big and in bright black letters of SDS. And this will allow you to call a number that is provided by our 3M company to give you an SDS sheet from our database. This is important, especially if, like I said, you can't access that from a computer. You can call that number, tell them exactly what chemical you need the SDS sheet for, and they can email it to you, they can fax it to you, or they can even send it to a medical provider that someone may have been taken to if they were to get it into their eye, into their digestive system, or into their skin, and they needed to seek emergency medical treatment. So this would be a great tool for you to know if you ever needed to. Earlier I talked and I mentioned a little bit about the eye wash and shower station. The eye wash and shower station is great for us to have in case of an emergency related to getting chemical on our skin with chemical burns or rinsing it out of our eyes. The key thing to remember here is if you were to get chemical on your skin or in your eyes, you would want to go in front of this shower station. You'd want to strip down to bare clothes or as much clothes you can take off that have that chemical on it and shower in this shower for at least 15 minutes. If you were to get chemical into your eye, you also would want to do the exact same thing except with the eye wash part. You'd want to take contacts out if you wear contacts. You definitely would want to remove your glasses, and you'd want to use this water for at least 15 minutes consistently to ensure that as much chemical that you can possibly get out of your eyes, you can get out with this shower station and eye wash station. So very, very good thing to have. Hopefully you'll never have to use it, but definitely make sure you know exactly where these are located in your facility during the next couple weeks during your walkthrough. Another big thing that we have here at Publix is our personal protective equipment, which you're also going to hear as PPE. PPE is a huge thing because Publix actually provides it for us, everything almost except our steel toes. All we have to do is make the commitment to wear it each and every day. Our PPE will definitely be diverse depending on where we're going to be working at. In distribution, your biggest PPE may be your steel toes. In manufacturing, you may be in sanitation where you have to wear greens, goggles, different types of gloves in order to handle chemicals or clean. So it could be definitely different depending on where you're going to be working at each and every day. The most important part is once you get to your facilities, you're going to learn about that PPE, and you're going to need to make sure you commit to wearing it each and every day. If you ever have PPE that becomes damaged during normal day-to-day use or work, please get with your manager or your safety specialist, and we'll make sure that we get you new PPE out to you. Now let's talk about temperature extremes. We talked already about ammonia and how it can cool down some of these refrigeration sites and warehouses, but I didn't tell you exactly how cold. Some examples such as frozen foods can get extremely cold, like 20 degrees below zero. That's pretty cold, I won't lie to you. But one of the things you want to make sure you do is you dress appropriate for the conditions you're going to be working within. At frozen foods, you might want to dress like this guy in this picture here. Freezer suit jackets, gloves, hoodies, hats, things like that to keep you nice and warm. Because there are hazards relating to cold if we don't dress properly, such as frostbite, where our body starts pulling all of that warm blood and heat to our core organs to protect them, and you start feeling like your fingertips are going numb. If you have situations like that happen in those refrigerated facilities, you want to make sure you go to the warm-up room or take time to bring your body temperature back up so you don't develop frostbite or anything like that, because it could happen if we don't dress properly. Also, in other areas, let's just say in distribution like LV, HV, how you dress is really going to debate on how you wake up and you go outside that morning, and however the temperature is going to be about the same as what it's going to feel like inside those warehouses. So during the winter, you might want to dress warmer, and during the summer, you might want to dress in more athletic wear to make sure you're not developing any type of hot, heat-related symptoms because of being in jeans or a sweater and working in a hot environment. So please dress accordingly, and the best thing to do is ask your manager and associates in the area during this next week to know how to dress. Now, let's check in with our safety testers and learn a little bit more about smart moves and strong bodies that relates to sprain and strains injuries. This will be a great way and a group of techniques that we can use each and every day here at Publix to avoid those type of injuries. Let's see how the safety testers are doing.
Welcome to this episode of Safety Testers. Today we're talking about making smart moves.
That's right, smart moves that you can use while at work and at home.
Right, now when a professional athlete uses his or her body, the way they move is no accident. They condition themselves to use smart moves for optimal performance and minimal stress. An injury from moving the wrong way can take an athlete out of the game and affect them for years to come, but by making smart moves, not only do they increase their performance, but they make themselves stronger.
That's right. And you as Publix associates, with all the physical demands of your job, are industrial athletes.
Right, industrial athletes that can benefit from using smart moves while on the job.
After weeks of research and study, we've compiled a list of 7 smart moves that you can use here at Publix. And they are good posture, proper lifting, turning, not twisting, using the smart zone, push, don't pull, position rotation, and keeping it neutral.
Right, these are the smart moves. But the question we'll also try to answer today is, will using these smart moves slow you down?
That's right. Can you use these smart moves and be productive at the same time?
That is the million-dollar question. But let's get to the smart moves, shall we?
Yes. Our research has shown that good posture is the key to every smart move, which is why we have brought in Jenny, who is a personal trainer and an expert in good posture.
Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Eddie. Now, contrary to popular belief, good posture does not mean keeping your spine totally straight. If you've ever tried it, you would know it can't be done. It would be exhausting. Good posture is about maintaining the natural curves in your back, here and here.
Okay, and how do we go about doing this?
Well, I like to imagine that your body is being held by a string from the ceiling down to your head, and that way it forces alignment throughout your body.
That's interesting. Oh, do you mind if I try lifting that box over there?
Sure.
All right.
Wait, hold on. How are you doing that?
What? Oh, she said to imagine a string.
Yeah, but that's...
Well, I have a very vivid imagination.
Are you seeing this?
Oh, that's interesting. I can't bend over because the string is holding me up. I can, however, crouch down, keeping my head up and my butt down. Oh, that's interesting.
See, good posture is a key to every smart move. That was a smart lift.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Jenny. You're going to be our test subject number 1, and we're going to see you very shortly.
Test subjects, lift.
Okay, test subject number 1 is lifting properly, using what I call the smart lift.
Yes, I see. Subject number 1 has a wide stance, 1 foot slightly forward, legs bent, squatting to get closer to the item.
Keeping the item close to her core, she lifts with her head up and butt down.
Which places a lot less strain on her lower back muscles.
Uh-huh.
On to test subject number 2.
Test subject number 2 is performing what I call the not too swift lift.
His lift is basically performed using his back muscles, which are mechanically at a disadvantage from his legs for this function. How does that feel, test subject number 2?
It smarts.
See? Not smart, smarts.
All moves can hurt. The question is, where? At the end of the day, if your back hurts, more than likely you weren't using smart moves. But if your legs and your butt hurt, chances are you were making smart moves and making yourself stronger.
Very good. Our next move is turning nut twisting.
Yes. For this move, test subjects are to put this box on a table directly behind them.
Test subject number 1 is doing the smart move by doing some fancy footwork.
Yes. By moving her feet, she reduces the strain on her back.
Test subject number 2, however, is twisting.
This is the incorrect way. Pay very close attention to his feet. They're not moving.
Oh. So keep your toes with your nose.
What?
Keep your toes with your nose. If you keep your toes aligned with your nose at all times, you're good.
Oh, good point. And it rhymes. I like that. That's subject number 2. How does that feel?
Oh.
Not a very clear description. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about using the smart zone. The smart zone for lifting, pulling, setting stuff down, or even just working with your hands is the area from the mid-chest down to just above the knees, and the area from the midsection when the arms are bent at a 90-degree angle to the end of the hands. We're using this graphic imagery to represent the smart zone. To test this experiment, subject number 1 will be using the smart zone, and subject number 2 will be using the not so smart zone.
Test subjects, lift your boxes.
And then I ask them to hold to see the results.
Have you found conclusive results with this test?
Every time.
The next move is push, don't pull. Pushing, not pulling. The human body seems better designed to push rather than pull a load.
In the first test, let's look at arm positioning. Test subject number 1, who's pushing, can easily put her arms on the cart. How does that feel?
Good.
Good. Test subject number 2 attempts to put his hands on the cart, but can't because he isn't facing the cart. He then ends up using one arm to pull the cart.
Only having having one arm on the cart is not a good idea. It causes it to be completely unbalanced, and that can cause more strain.
Correct. Pulling with two hands also puts them at a disadvantage.
Our next smart move is using neutral positions.
The neutral position is the position your body goes into when naturally relaxed. The buoyancy of the pool will help us to see that position in our test subjects. Test subject number 1 is floating and relaxed. Her fingers are slightly bent in a natural position, her legs, arms bent, etc. Which compares to the video we shot in the bakery of her moving the muffins. Right, notice how her arms are in the same neutral position.
I see.
Right, now everyone's neutral position is slightly different. It's based on body type, physical condition, and past injuries.
Then last on the list, what is position rotation?
I'm so glad you asked. Watch.
Okay, so position rotation is changing tasks with another associate, so you don't find yourself doing the same moves continuously.
Right, exactly. Now, if your manager has set up a job rotation, the key is you have to follow it. There may be some tasks that you enjoy more than others, and you may even want to help someone else avoid a task that they don't enjoy. Our research shows that you're much better off if you just change it up.
So those are the smart moves. Now, smart moves may not come naturally to you at first, but it's okay. You have to condition yourself to use them. Focus on using smart moves first. Now, the speed will eventually come, whether or not you choose to use the smart moves. But if you do, you'll be performing faster with a stronger and healthier body. Oh, I have an idea. In fresh foods, in manufacturing, they have a monitor that they use to measure productivity.
Oh, we can make sure those associates are using the smart moves and then measure their productivity.
The safety testers made their way to Fresh Foods in Lakeland, where they found many Publix associates using smart moves, such as the neutral position, using the smart zone, turning, not twisting, and rotating positions. The productivity monitor read 133%, proving that it is possible to use smart moves and be productive at the same time.
Okay, one more test. I think we should visit a high-velocity warehouse so we can see if our selectors are using their smart moves and if they can still be productive at the same time.
Oh, this will be a good test because selectors get paid based on how fast they move, and their job is moving boxes from place to place.
Right.
The safety testers made their way down to the Publix high-velocity warehouse and discovered many smart moves being used. Good posture, proper lifting, turning, not twisting, use of the smart zone, and even a proper lift to use when there's a low shelf above the product you're lifting.
Well, you guys used a lot of smart moves here and did a bang-up job.
Well, thank you. We require all our associates to work as safe and as efficient as possible, and these two guys are here at the top of their game.
So how productive are you two?
Well, the average selector throws around at 100%. We both throw well above that.
So what's the secret to your success?
We also understand that we can get the job done efficiently without sacrificing safety.
Yes, you always want to be safe out there, especially when you first start. You want to just learn the warehouse, learn the orders, learn how to stack them, make sure nothing falls on you. That's the key, or anybody else. You always want to work safely.
So now you know what the smart moves are. Keep it safe.
So we've talked a lot about associate safety and safety inside the warehouse. Now, let's talk a little bit on food-related safety, which is very, very important. If we don't have customers, we probably wouldn't have a job, right? A lot of people choose Publix because of the quality and the food safety we provide them each and every day. So it's important here that we remember that during these next couple slides. Gum is a huge way that different viruses, different things can get spread around the warehouse by people throwing gum on the grass, on the concrete, and it getting picked up on shoes and then getting brought into the warehouse. The biggest thing I can ask you guys to do today is keep that stuff on the outside of the warehouse and throw it away in trash cans when you're done with it. Please do not bring that inside because we wouldn't ever want to spread anything inside of the facility and also cause any type of harm to our customers or even our family who is customers. Other type of food safety things we want to remember is we never want to eat from someone who is delivering food like this, right? So we want to make sure we take that same pride whenever we're touching cases or we're making product. We want to make sure we're cleaning our hands, washing our hands every time we use the restroom. Anytime we enter a food prep area, especially our cafeterias. When we get done eating and drinking, we also want to wash our hands then. Sneezing and coughing into our hand is also a huge one, especially with what's going on right now. Handle materials that could contaminate food or production surfaces is another big one. We want to make sure we clean those areas correctly if we're ever working on top of them with any type of projects or anything like that. We always want to make sure we clean up after ourselves and never leave anything that could harm anybody on top of anything. Other things to remember is our smoking designated areas. We do have areas where you can use tobacco in, such as cigarettes, dip, or anything like that. You can use those in these designated areas only. We want to make sure we're never smoking outside of those, one, for those fire prevention related situations, but also for our food safety. We don't want dip inside the warehouses and people spitting or anything around product that we're going to be shipping to our customers, so please make sure that only stays in these permitted areas only that will be marked and labeled. Other important food safety measures is if we ever have a spill, we need to make sure we clean it up. We don't want to leave things there, especially in our cafeterias. Publix is pretty awesome with giving us a free meal each and every day. The one thing they just ask for us is that we pick up after ourselves. So please make sure if you ever spill a drink or any type of food in the cafeteria, you clean it up and you place your trays and cups in the designated areas when leaving the cafeteria. Also, in relations to food safety and keeping up with cleanliness, we want to make sure we all do our parts. Yes, we do have sanitation associates. Yes, there are people who go around all day long mopping up areas and providing good sanitation to our warehouses and manufacturing facilities. But we all need to remember that we each have a part to play in this. If you drop something and you damage something, or if you cause a mess, it is your responsibility to clean it up. It is not someone else's. So please make sure we all take pride in that and we take part in cleaning and keeping our warehouses and facilities as clean as we possibly can. And also relating to food safety, with temperature danger zones, it is important to note that some zones have to stay in certain areas. So some foods can only be so hot, kept in so hot environments, and others must be kept cold in a certain temperature range as well. We have to do that each time we receive product in the warehouse and also when we ship it out. And we have to make sure we keep that temperature zone controlled during the whole stay of that product while Publix has it to ensure the best quality for our customers. If we don't, customers could get sick. If we have ice cream, we don't want to let it get too warm or it might start melting and the dairy could go bad. Same thing with cheeses and other types of foods. So it's important to know the layout of your warehouse and where you can take that product throughout where it will still remain its temperature correctly. If we ever have temperature checks that are done on product and it's not the correct temperature of what it should be, we need to let our managers know immediately. That way we can dispose of that product as soon as we can and make sure it does not get shipped to the store for our customers. So the last video of the day is on food adulteration, which is extremely important in relations to food safety. Across the world, there have been multiple people who have tried to attempt to mess with people's food. This video is going to show you exactly how severe it is for people who do try to make food adulteration to those foods and how we can prevent those as Publix associates to make sure it never happens to our company.
Our customers expect to receive premier quality food when shopping at our stores. But what if the food in our stores was making people sick? What if this was done on purpose? Since 9/11, there has been a growing concern about attacks occurring on our food sources. These intentional attacks are what the FDA and food industry call intentional adulteration. The FDA created the intentional adulteration rule to protect the public against intentional adulteration or attacks on our food that occur in facilities that manufacture, process, pack, or hold food for human consumption in the U.S. While Publix has always taken steps to make sure the food we provide is protected from intentional adulteration, The FDA requires Publix to create food defense plans and train associates on how to help defend our food against intentional attacks at our distribution and manufacturing facilities. Intentional adulteration is the deliberate contamination of food with a biological, chemical, radiological, or physical agent with the intent to cause wide-scale illnesses and deaths. An example of this occurred in 2013 when several frozen foods were intentionally adulterated with a pesticide at a food facility in Japan. Japanese authorities believe the employee brought the chemical contaminant to the plant and added it during the manufacturing process. This intentional adulteration resulted in at least 2,843 foodborne illness reports and 6.4 million packages of various frozen foods recalled. Another example occurred in the U.S. in 2016 when an employee contaminated chicken with sand and soil picked up from the company's parking lot. This resulted in a recall of 28 tons of chicken products, and the employee received fines and prison time. The reputation of the company was also damaged. These are just two examples, but there are so many more. You probably can't imagine this ever happening at one of our facilities by one of our associates. But people are motivated for many reasons, such as anger or radical beliefs, and it's our responsibility to make sure that it never occurs at Publix. But what if an intentional adulteration did occur? Can you imagine what an attack on our food might do? It would cause recalls and public panic, financial loss to Publix, possible site closures leading to job loss, as well as potentially resulting in catastrophic public health issues, including illness and death. The consequences of intentional adulteration are serious for everyone affected. It could cause fatalities or serious long-term health consequences to our customers, damage to the reputation of our company, and cause associates to lose their jobs. Food tampering is a federal criminal felony and punishable by up to 30 years in a federal prison. If an associate, temporary worker, or contractor in our facilities is identified as intentionally contaminating food or even trying to contaminate food, we will fully cooperate with the FDA Office of Criminal Investigations, and he or she will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So how do we make sure that intentional adulteration doesn't occur at one of our facilities? To put it simply, we defend our food. Food defense is the effort to protect food from acts of intentional adulteration intended to cause wide-scale illnesses and death. The intentional adulteration rule requires companies with food manufacturing and distribution facilities like ours to implement a food defense plan which identifies all of the processes where an attack could take place and what we are doing to reduce or eliminate the possibility of intentional adulteration. As a result, we have put multiple measures in place to prevent such activities. Since intentional adulteration is usually carried out by an employee or contractor, limiting badge access, monitoring CCTVs, and having security at our gates is not enough to eliminate an occurrence. So facilities often have multiple steps in place, especially those that manufacture our food, to combat an internal attacker. We take our responsibility to protect food very seriously. So what can you do to reduce or eliminate threats from an inside attacker? We have taken great measures to ensure our food is safe and protected from internal and external threats, but it takes action from everyone to help reduce the risk of intentional adulteration. You know your work area best. You should examine your work area, equipment, ingredients, and products for any abnormal changes. This could include boxes or supplies in the wrong place or missing, keys or locks missing, or ingredients or products that are ripped, torn, or not sealed. You can also help by being aware of associates, temporary workers, or contractors who do not belong in processing areas, with package or containers that do not appear to be the usual Publix or Publix supplier packages or containers, especially in processing areas, or who are acting suspicious or out of the ordinary. If you overhear any conversation in a manufacturing or distribution facility relating to intentional adulteration, report it immediately to your manager. Each facility and area is unique, and these are just a few examples of what to pay attention to. Like it was stated earlier, you all know your work area best, and you should know what is not normal. Report anything you notice to your manager immediately. Remember, an intentional adulteration act is most likely going to come from a Publix associate, temporary worker, or contractor legitimately working in a manufacturing or distribution facility. Intentional adulteration has serious consequences, and without your diligence, it could occur at any time. If you see or hear something, or notice any suspicious or unusual behavior, report it to a manager immediately.
So I hope that video was able to show you just how severe food adulterations can be, and I hope it gives you an insight to make sure that never happens here at Publix. If you see something, please make sure you say something, whether to your manager, to a safety specialist, or to anybody. The more you talk about it and the more you tell, the more and the faster we can do to make sure that never happens. So congratulations, we made it through our safety orientation for Publix. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your industrial safety team or your managers with relations to anything in safety. We are here to help you. Last but not least, I would like to congratulate you once again for joining the Publix family, and I can't wait to see you around. Congratulations.